Okay, Alex, we're going to talk about anxiety, burnout, and avoidance. Let's get into it.
Big topic.
This episode was planned, just not polished at all. Alex and I decided to sit down and record a totally unscripted conversation. No outline, no bullet points, just two friends talking through the messy, honest, behind the scenes stuff we're usually too anxious to say out loud. We wanted it to be raw and imperfect on purpose because that's where the real magic happens. So, we're going to get into anxiety, imposter syndrome, fear of being too much or not enough, and why taking messy, immediate, imperfect action is sometimes the most courageous thing you can do. So, grab your cozy socks, friends, get under your favorite blanket, and let's dive in. Hey there, you just stumbled into the Anxious Creative Podcast, where overthinking turns into ahas, mess ups become magic, and anxious spirals, totally part of the process. I'm Dawn Bradley, your messy, imperfect host, here to help you, the recovering people pleaser, the perfectionist, to stop chasing the unachievable and start embracing the chaos. Spoiler alert, that's where the real magic happens anyway. So buckle up, friend, because we're about to have some laugh so hard till you cry moments, a few hard truths to help you grow, and naturally, a little, or let's be honest, a lot, of oversharing. You ready? Let's dive in. I'm curious, what was the pull to want to come and chat and record this with me?
I'm sad that we missed each other at International Beauty Show New York because
I know.
I feel like we could have gotten into that kind of conversation even off air, but I think I've always just felt pretty safe with you, like from the get-go, from whenever it was when we recorded the first podcast on Forest FM, which was maybe like 2019, 2020, maybe 2020.
I want to say it was in the pandemic. I don't even like to say that word sometimes.
Yeah. And I feel like we've just been like, I don't know, since the start of this year, we've shared quite a few exchanges through DMs or whatnot, personal shares. And I was like, I don't know. I just had a feeling that we would have a good conversation that could be, that would feel good for both of us, but that could probably also just be really nice for other people to hear, relate to, or better understand folks that are in their own circles. So yeah, that was
I love that. And I got to say, telling me that I feel like you saying that I'm a safe person is like the best compliment ever. Because I've talked to my therapist so much about feeling safe with people. And she's, do you think the reason why you create safety for others is because you've never felt safe? And I was like, oh, that's really true. And so I really want to be a safe person for people. So thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, I don't even know. It must have been through like the powers of the Instagram world that we like crossed paths. I can't even remember. And I feel like we connected and we've had, yeah, some like really cool DM conversations, which I love. When did you start recognizing anxiety and burnout in your life? Like consciously.
Consciously, yeah. Anxiety, probably as a young adult, like early 20s vibes, but I don't think I had necessarily the conscious, oh, I'm feeling anxious. I was just like, I don't feel like myself. And like, at some point, I ended up going to therapy and we explored. And initially at the time, they were just like, oh, you have generalized anxiety disorder. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what's that. But then later, with many more years, I started to feel like really depleted in more ways than it felt like. It just didn't feel. It was actually, the pandemic was like a big moment where I started realizing like, whoa, okay, I'm doing a lot more like of very specific checking behaviors, like leaving the house. Like I wasn't able to leave the house very easily after the pandemic. I had to like double check, triple check if the stove was off or if the water like of the shower was off or XYZ. There's so many like little rituals that I needed to do. And then at some point that wasn't even like enough to check 3 times. I had to take photos, and one photo of the stove wasn't enough anymore. So there was a lot of things piling up, and then there was just me being very reactive in general. And I think it was my partner at the time who encouraged me to look into what was happening for me, because she was like, it feels like sometimes like you're chill and then all of a sudden something's happened and I don't know. I have no awareness of what happened, but all of a sudden I can't, like you're like in a different reality and I can't like reach you anymore. No matter what I say, there's nothing to be able, like I can't logic you out of whatever you're feeling. And then I was like, yeah, I recognize that, but I don't know what's happening. I didn't have the language at the time either. So eventually I started like looking into or resonating a lot with symptoms of OCD. And so I
Mm.
therapy and an eval for that, which I did get in 2022. And that kind of led me down the path of, okay, but also there's other things still, and like it still doesn't feel right. And so eventually I started realizing, oh, okay, like the co-occurrence of like autism and OCD, and this is what's happening a whole lot more. And then that helped me understand autistic burnout, which I ended up spending a full year in 2023.
Now, what is autistic burnout?
It shows up in different ways for different people, but for me, it really affected my different spheres. It affected like my body as like like I had physical symptoms. It affected my cognitive kind of realm. It affected my executive functioning. I was just constantly depleted, feeling like I had no internal resources left. I was constantly exhausted, like physically. I felt like all of a sudden my brain was like cogs just not working anymore. I was like, I can't write content and this is what I do for a living. What the heck? How am I supposed to like function all of a sudden? Like anything that I used to know or understood about how I best worked wasn't working anymore. I felt increased just like fear around anything, like anything that might happen. I was like, I'm not going to be able to handle that. I'm too tapped out. Like everything, I was just like, so just no, like I'm too
Mm.
tapped out for anything. Just struggling to get by. Honestly, it's like a miracle that I was able to get through a full year of work without going on leave. Like looking back, I'm like, wow, that is insane that I was able to like still manage to do what.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm curious because stress, like whether it's autistic burnout, like cortisol, I mean, it's all so interconnected. Where do you think the line, or do you think we can draw a line? Because I'm like, I used to be, I mean, I've told you a little bit about my upbringing. I used to be like a very black and white thinker, and I think there's so much gray. Do you think there's a line where we can say you have to push through? Or is it like a blurry, like, how do you know when you need rest and when you need to push through? And I'm curious because I don't know the answer either.
I
Because
think
I used to personally, I used to take 2 weeks a year, one in the summer and at Christmas, and I would turn off my phone for 7 days. And for the first 4 days, I'd be twitchy. And the last three, I was like, I don't want to turn my phone back on. And I'm realizing I need to do that again because it is such a good reset. But like, where do you, yeah, where is the line? Do you think there is a line? And how do you know when you need to push through and just, sometimes we have to push through things. And when do you know you need rest?
I don't know that I've found the perfect balance yet either. Honestly, I think it's going to be a lifelong kind of negotiation with myself.
I like that negotiation. Yeah.
But I think that now that I'm a bit more aware and I have like I was mentioning to you before we were on a call, like I have a checklist now that
Yeah.
I've accessed like resources for because I was like, how do you like, okay, now that I know that I'm in autistic burnout and I need rest, like I need my everything to just like chill. My brain needs to like it's I was explaining to a friend yesterday, we were talking about this. I was like, sometimes it feels like when I'm in that space, I'm like running a 20 like maybe a computer from like the early 2000s and trying to be as speedy as like the latest 2025 version of whatever laptop there is on the market.
Right.
And I'm like, it's overworking. It clearly needs like either a system upgrade, it needs to cool down, like I don't like, but it's not functioning anymore. So clearly there's a part of that. Yes, I need rest. But like to a certain extent, sometimes I'm like, okay, rest is okay. But like what happens? Cause like recently I've fallen into that again, but I was like, I've been sleeping at least 8 hours a night. I've been taking a nap right after work. I've been taking a nap on lunch break. Like, how much more rest can I get? There's a certain point where I'm like, okay, clearly I need something else that can like
Mm.
alleviate other of the symptoms because yeah, I think there's, for me anyways, rest isn't all of it. I think a lot of times I don't think, or I suppress stimming, and there's a lot of that
Mm.
really helps actually,
I
whether
just wrote down like active rest.
yeah, exactly.
I'm like flipping my pencil. Sorry.
Kind of,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like soft movement, like yoga or stretching or even just going for a walk. For me, going to the gym is like a really good, even though it's like I'm exerting energy physically, it actually really helps me just notice how my muscles are moving and find that like mind muscle connection where I'm like just bringing myself back into my body, and like that really helps. Sometimes it's just putting on my headphones, like my AirPods. I'm at home. I live alone. I still need the headphones in, blasting sound, like the biggest throwbacks or like my feel good songs, like karaoke songs, whatever. And I'm just
Mhm.
like singing and dancing in my living room for no one to see, but just for my body to feel more grounded. And yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of that helps. And then it's just, yeah, like communicating it to folks around to be like, hey, also the other point is, and I know we're going to touch upon this more, but I think like just having no demand days, I've realized
Mhm.
it's
And like without guilt.
yeah, no. And what I mean by demand, it can be like even just having a text and having to reply.
Mm.
I need to have, I think I need in the future to actively prioritize scheduling days where I don't have to answer anything, or I don't put that expectation even on myself to reply or get back to people quickly or on that day, and just like literally do whatever sensory thing feels good for me and
Mhm.
do whatever my body feels like it needs. So whether that's actually sleeping or again going to the gym or whatnot, like just listening to what my body's needing and going with that and trusting
And
that.
that awareness for me, because I just wrote down as you were talking about rest, I remember learning about the difference between mental rest, emotional rest, physical rest, and spiritual rest. And then I just wrote down nervous system rest because sometimes active rest is what I need. But I always default to thinking I need physical rest. And then I'll go lay on the couch and scroll, which is not giving. And what I need is mental rest because I'm an overthinker,
Mm,
overanalyzer, want to like, if I can't understand the why behind something, it frustrates me. And what I often need is to go move my body to get my brain off things, but I default to not moving my body and thinking when I need mental rest. And that's why, like, for me, like shutting my phone off is so important. Getting off of social media is so important.
yeah.
Not being constantly like, I don't need to like zone out to trash TV. I need to be in nature and not away from like stimulation.
And I think we could all benefit from more of time spent in nature and less connected to our phones. Cause yeah, like that is a massive stressor, honestly.
Yeah.
For sure. There's something you mentioned there, and now I'm blanking, but the
Glad we both do that.
it's so frustrating. It's gonna come back to me. It's
It was so good. It was like my
yeah,
$1 million
yeah.
business idea that's gone. Active rest, nervous system, spiritual rest. I wrote down maybe and maybe I'll come back to you. Like, what do you think about labels?
Ooh, I
So
mean,
we're talking about like OCD, autism. I talk about ADHD, depression, anxiety. And I've always believed like I don't ever want to use a label as a crutch or as an excuse. And
yeah.
sometimes I have a hard time with it. But do you think, yeah, I'm curious your opinions.
Yeah, I like to I'm not like necessarily for or against labels or whatnot. If you need them, if you want them, go for it. From my own experience, I've had a tendency to need them, but not in a sense to not in a way to box me, in a way to better understand my experience and relate to other people who have similar experiences and be able to identify those people a bit more and just be like, "Oh, you too. Okay, great. Can we talk about this and can we hear
Yeah.
each other out because I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, for example." But I've found that sometimes just explaining how I'm feeling, for example, I find the labels for me helpful when I can't succinctly explain my experience and I need someone
Mm.
or I want to relate with someone who's shares somewhat of the same kind of challenges. It's interesting because when I was exploring gender years ago, I remember like one of my friends had said I'd asked her like a specific question and I was like, I want you to be as honest as possible. I'm doing this like exercise where I'm answering questions about like to myself and then I'm asking them back to people who know me either for 10 years, some just barely know me, some I've just met at a conference, like whatever. I was just like, I want to gauge where the gap is. But she had said, I'd asked what's one word to describe me, I think, or something like that. And she'd said lost. And initially, and she was like, I really don't want to say this, but I feel like sometimes maybe you need like a map to know where you're going and to feel more secure in yourself in that way. And I think that comes back now. Now I understand it more as like I needed to have a few words to describe my experience to be able to like express it more clearly to other people, to feel like people could understand me. Because I think that's one of the struggles that I've had for the longest times is like feeling like people actually understood what I was like what was happening for me in various different ways, whether it was gender, whatever it was. But I was just yeah, seeking more of that kind of I want people to actually understand what's happening. You know?
Yeah, feeling misunderstood has been like a big thing for me too. I'm curious because you brought it up. Do you feel like, and do you want to share your story through gender exploration? But do you feel like that's helped with some of the anxiety as you've moved through it? Or has it made it worse?
I
Some
mean,
kind of awareness, like I feel like I wish I just could go back to being ignorant. Like I understand ignorance is bliss so much better now.
yeah, yeah, I do understand that too so much. I think in some ways it has helped with the anxiety. It's also now from a social like where socially things are at, it's
Right.
not better.
You- Yeah,
Like
you not coming to New York,
other
case in point.
yeah, there's other parts now that I'm like, "Oh, I didn't used to have to feel anxious about that, but I guess now I do." But in general, like, my exploration with gender has been probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever that I would probably will ever have done for myself. It's made me just question how I moved through the world, how I actually felt, which I didn't really take a lot of time to do or consider growing up because I feel like I was often just put into certain boxes, certain labels, and I was just like, I don't have the energy to try and argue with whoever is putting me in these boxes, so I guess I'm just gonna roll with it. And I didn't necessarily have the language to explain my experience again. So I think to a certain extent, I've I've gained so much more confidence. I've gained so much more understanding of who I am and what my values are. And it's,
What are your values? Do you know them?
yeah, I think that depending on the seasons in my life, certain come and move up and down the ladders of importance. But for me, there's connection, curiosity, just being like putting a lot of value on like continuous learning. I think we can all be lifelong learners, and that would be we have such a I don't know, such a different world.
I love the curiosity. I'm like, I want to add that to my list because I am a very curious person.
Structure. I value structure a lot. It helps it helps me feel more regulated in general. One of the things that I've realized like living alone versus living with a partner, for example, is like how much more grounded I can be at home when I'm living alone because I have that control over a routine and the structure that I set up in my own kind of living space or ways of doing things. And there's, I mean, I really value kindness and compassion more and more. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the ones that like come to mind, like that are that feel like really important in this kind of season. What about you? I'm curious.
Yeah, mine are honesty, integrity, transparency. There's another one, and fun. I put. I really value fun.
Yeah.
And I think connectedness, and I like curiosity as well. But I like that idea of, yeah, like when you said like this season of life, because I know for me, there's been times where I felt trapped in my past or who I thought I was supposed to be. And I grew up in a small town. I was shy, anxious, awkward, not confident. And as I built my online presence, feeling like, am I allowed to be this version of myself? This is the version that I'm like with my friends behind closed doors that nobody ever sees. But is this like fun, like outgoing, confident version of me allowed? And like this weird needing permission and looking, and it's funny because the people that I'm like most scared of is my immediate family. And I'm even scared saying that on the podcast because I'm like, I don't know if they listen to it. But I am like terrified. What's that?
Relatable.
Yeah, really. There's a reason why I like just started like cross posting my Instagram stuff onto Facebook, and it scares the shit out of me because my family's on Facebook, but they're not on Instagram. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, interesting. I can be this version of myself in front of strangers. But the thought of my siblings or my parents like teasing me and probably lightheartedly and innocently will feel like a death. And
Mm,
it's funny because recently my dad said to me, like, you should get an agent. Like, your motivational stuff is so good. And I was like, what? Like, I was just waiting for, because I like do a lot of motivational speaking and things like that, but so terrified of my family poking fun of it because you see the SNL skits or like people talking about like Tony Robbins and like poking fun. And I'm like, oh, like I can't, there's like this weird block. So anyway, you asked me about values. I went on, I'm having you on the podcast and I just went on a tangent. But
I asked you what your values were. I flipped the question on
yeah,
you.
there we go. It's you're interviewing me. But there is this like the honesty, integrity, transparency, and fun, trying to live out those values in front of people that I'm scared may no, I'm scared not what they will do, how I will perceive it,
Mm,
and how I will adapt my behavior out of fear rather than living authenticity. That's another value. And rather than living authentically. And like the authentic part is feels so vulnerable because I'm actually a really goofy, quirky person, but I have chameleoned myself for most of my life to whoever I'm with, whatever I'm like church friends, party friends, the like woo friends, like medicated friends. Like I'm just like, where do I even, who am I? And so
yeah.
trying to learn who like authentic Dawn is and live that out regardless of acceptance or rejection is hard. And those are my values. Thank you, Alex, for asking.
That is so real. And thank you for sharing. I think probably a lot of people are going to relate to what you said, honestly, because there's parts of that I really strongly relate to as well. There's a lot of stuff that I don't share with my immediate family. I'm like, that I'm super proud of, but I'm just like, I can't deal.
They reject me, it feels like a death.
Yeah, yeah. And like I know they love me and I know that they'd be super supportive, but also they wouldn't hold back. They're very like transparent and just honest, which I very very much appreciate, but sometimes I'm like I don't want the most raw honest version of what you can tell me right now.
No, because like rejection from someone who you don't care about their opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember in therapy once talking to my therapist about my immediate family and feeling like I didn't fit in with them. And I'm the only, I just recently went to my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. My one brother's been married, I think 24 years. The other one's been married 20 years. And I'm there being like, I'm somewhere between the adults and the kids table. Like,
Mm,
But I was married and divorced within 2 years. I was in a 10-year relationship that ended.
Yeah.
They can't relate to my life experience, and understandably. But I remember talking to my therapist, this is like 2016, and she's like, "It makes sense that it is scary because we're pack animals, and what happens to an animal when they venture off from the pack is they die. So when you don't feel like you fit into your like core family unit, you feel like you're dying. And so it makes sense that you would adapt and mold and chameleon yourself to what you're supposed to be. Because the person I am with my immediate family is not the person you're seeing right now. And I don't like
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting what comes to mind when you said that was, like, I think for me, it's more about I think with my immediate family, I've had such a hard time and I had no understanding for such a long time of, like, how to set boundaries.
Oh,
That is still very much a big struggle with immediate family, and so I find myself go back to I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm almost, like, seeing this kid version of myself interacting with my family, and
oh
I'm
yeah, reverting back.
but I'm so conscious still, and I still have all of this, like, I'm a full-grown adult, and I'm, like, there, but I'm like, "Wow, why am I feeling like I'm feeling the same kind of, like, shyness and, like, insecure version of me that was, like, me as a kid when I'm, like, in immediate families, and I think it's because I have had such a hard time setting boundaries for such a long time, and now that I can do it a little bit better just in general, when I do it with family, I'm like, "Oh god, this is gonna be such a shock," because I haven't been that person. And so I'm again coming back to that negotiation. I'm like constantly just negotiating like the versions of myself with them.
Yeah. And I used to put it on them and realizing it's me. Like I'm reverting back. I'm falling into like this. And it's easy when like it's expected and they only know that version of you.
Mm,
Learning to like, how do I show up as like the new improved version when they're, and then I'm like, I don't want to go into specifics, but like when you change your behavior and then they're not expecting you to have a changed behavior and it almost throws them off. And I almost feel like sometimes, like I had a moment once with someone in my family where I like made like a jokey remark and they snapped back at me and I went, "Oh, I was just making a joke." Where normally in the past I would have burst into tears and ran into the room. Right? Like I'm like that's who I become in my family is I like cry and leave and like emotions I don't feel are allowed. And then that person was like they were taken back when I was like, "Oh, I like wasn't meaning to." I think I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't meaning to offend you. Like I was just trying to poke fun." And they were, "Oh," and like finding this new it's like a new dance, right? And it's, "Oh, wait, this isn't the steps we normally take." And
yeah.
it's a different feeling. Also, I think we talked about this before we started recording, but I just started a new medication today and I'm feeling a little bit weird right
She's
now. And I don't know if I'm acting weird, but I'm feeling a little like, what? And so if this podcast is weird at all, let's brought to you by new medication because I feel a little loopy. Oh, good. Okay, so I just wrote down triggers and trauma because we're talking about immediate family, but we talked about labels, we're talking about like anxiety, a burnout, like avoidance of, you said you have a checklist now, so you know if you're doing good. What are, how do you relate to triggers and have you done trauma work?
How do I relate to triggers? Often in a delayed manner. I don't like necessarily realize that what's happened was a trigger for me. And then I'm like, oh, I'm feeling all these bubbling emotions all of a sudden. I'm like, why? What's this happening? But okay, for what comes to mind immediately is like sensory triggers for me because scent, like food textures, or even just sound. Like currently, there's renos happening, like street, like construction. They're ripping up the whole like street and redoing a bunch of stuff, and there's just like this like constant buzzing of like construction tool going on for the past like 10 minutes. I'm like, when is it going to stop? Because it's so distracting. Like sometimes I'll just be in the subway and I get like super like annoyed and frustrated and I'm like, what is happening all of a sudden? Like no one's interacted with me. Like I have my headphones in. I'm not like and then I'm like, oh. 10 minutes later, it's because I'm way too hot. Like, I have too many layers. Like, I need to, like, but so it's off, there's often a delay because I think a lot of my triggers would be in the like sensory kind of realm, the ones that like really affect me quickly. But because I have a hard time recognizing sometimes those signs in my body, which is why the gym is so helpful to like connect mind muscle. It just forces me to slow down and hear how my body's feeling, or, oh, this muscle is like maybe a little too tired for that exercise. Maybe we do another thing. Like it's just, it's training. Yes, I'm like actually working out, but it's also training my brain to understand the physical signals that my body is sending me.
Do you feel like you have more awareness than you ever did before around that? Or still takes time?
It's definitely not perfect still. I don't think
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect is so subjective and it's like a forever moving target, but it's the best it's ever been. There's still a lot of work to do. That's what
Yeah. I recently, so I posted on my Instagram stories, and actually I just made 94 cents on Amazon Associates. Feel like I get the influencers thing. But I like recommended this book that I read in 2016, which is all about minimalism, but it walks you through not just like minimalism in physical things, but like in your finances, in your social life, in like your mental clutter. And I did this huge purge in 2016 of like physical things. I was moving with my ex-partner at the time, and then I ended up like ending up in the hospital thinking I was having a stroke, and it was a massive panic attack, and I like did a body purge. And so I did this again 2 weekends ago, or maybe it was last weekend, where I went top to bottom of my house, through every cupboard, through every drawer, through everything, and got rid of what I don't need. And I was really nervous about, okay, last time I did this, like my body had a reaction, but being really aware. I've also gone through quite a traumatic event recently, and I've never noticed the physical sensation of my body when my nervous system is like on high alert and I'm about to have a panic attack, but I feel like I'm tingling on the inside. It's like electricity is running through my body, and I want to default to laying down,
Yeah.
and then my brain goes wild, but I have to go move my body. And
Yeah.
so that tingly sensation is a trigger for me to be like, go move. And I have two 90-pound dogs. I'll go speed walk with them. And like, I have to get like I used to run sprints interval sprints on a high incline just to get my body moving so that my brain will stop. And that's like an interesting trigger for me, is like the body sensation, which I've never been aware of before, but I'm able to actually catch my panic attacks before they start for the most part, except for like going through this like traumatic event recently. And sometimes you just gotta let yourself like cry it out.
Yeah. But that's huge.
Yeah, I'm curious. Here's a question for you. When do you know to sit? Where's the difference between sitting and feeling your feelings and experiencing them and not getting stuck on them? Because I want to know the answer. Because until I want to intellectualize everything, I want to understand it. I want to write it down. I want to know why, instead of just experiencing it and feeling it.
Yeah.
But then it's like, where do you draw the line between like, when's it too much, or is there too much, or what's grief, what's rumination?
Okay, so where's the line between feeling your feelings and feeling stuck in them? So the biggest kind of experience that comes to mind when I think about that and having the both the experience of feeling them and feeling stuck in them was when my dad passed away in
Oh,
2015, early 2015, and it was a car accident, so it was sudden. And I wasn't necessarily like the closest to my dad. We My parents split when I was 4. I would go to his place every second weekend, and even at that, sometimes because me and my brother we played a lot of sports. We were in sports teams. Sometimes we'd have tournaments. Like either swap weekends or skip them sometimes if we had to. And so I didn't think that I'd be grieving for so long, and I guess it was my second big grieving experience. Like the first one that I can like now recall really was like the loss of my dog when I was a kiddo. But like having a parent pass away when you're 25 and you're not expecting it whatsoever, regardless, expecting it or not, like, it's still huge, but for me, that was, like, the closest, like, big big family personal loss that I'd had, and I gave myself time to feel all the feelings, and I'm very grateful to my past employer, like, at the time this happened, I got the call when I was at work in the morning, and I just crashed, and my boss was extremely kind and compassionate and just said, "Take whatever time you need, don't worry about pay, don't worry about anything, we got you, just go do whatever, go feel whatever you have to feel." And even gave me his like code to try Headspace, like the app for like an extended period, like a premium version for an extended period of time, whatever he had, because he's big on meditation and mindfulness. I'm so grateful to every people that I was working with, everyone that I was working with at the time. Shout out to Audio Z, who still edit the podcast today now. I've come back to them in a different way. But it's interesting because I felt like I needed time. I'm a slow processor around anything, honestly, and anything emotional. Like it takes me time to just understand what's happened, and then B, because I need to like, yeah, I guess intellectualize what has happened, and then B, I can then feel the feels, and then I can move through them. So it's like a slow burn, and I felt rushed going back into work after that. I think it
Mm.
took 2 weeks, and I was like, logically, I can't take that long. Like I was feeling the pressure, even though they'd said take whatever time you need. I was feeling the pressure of still needing to go back and not take advantage of the kindness that was being shown to me. And I also had some people sharing things that made it, or I perceived it as more pressure to like, you should be okay by now, just move on kind of thing. And so I just got straight back into work after I think, yeah, 2 weeks or something. And it was really hard. I was definitely not showing up in the best version of myself throughout the rest of that year. And I was having a lot of h- very much physical reactions from that. That was the year that I got the most sick, like
Mm.
constantly sick, different things I got. And some obviously it's just like bad luck, but I ended up getting mono that year. I got strep randomly. I there was and it was like a big like ear, like my
Oh
ear
my
just
God.
there was
Do you think
just
sometimes like our bodies do things to like the universe has a plan as much as like that feels woo-woo-y to like teach us the lessons we need to learn?
yeah. If you don't take care, I know this does not come from me, but I've heard this many times. If you don't take care of yourself, your body's gonna force you to.
Yeah,
Uh,
whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that definitely happened that year. I definitely needed more time, and that's what led me to halfway through the year thinking, "Okay, what do I do? I feel stuck in this, like, cycle. I don't know how to get out." I felt so well supported. I had such a good network of people who were there and caring, and had a hard time sleeping. People would like just have me over to have a sleepover because I was just like, I can't sleep alone.
Yeah.
But that's around that time I was like, something needs to change. And I think for me, I needed like a big drastic, let's see how I do if I hit no support system, rock bottom kind of vibes. And I decided to move. And I moved to Dublin. I planned, started moving to Ireland essentially, but I got a working holiday visa. I gave like a 6 months notice to my work that I was going to leave and just move abroad for an undetermined amount of time. I didn't have any family or friends or a job lined up or accommodation even lined up in Ireland. Like I had 2 nights in a hostel and that was it. And I had
That's
one.
what I did when I was 22 in London. So you had 2 nights in the hostel, nothing else planned, no job, no nothing.
Oh, nothing.
This is
No.
like my story too. This is so wild. Okay, how old were you?
London. No.
Yeah, London.
I was 25 going on 26 when I
Okay.
got,
Me too.
yeah. And yeah, it was a tough year. It actually got me connecting with my mom a lot more because I was extremely anxious around a bunch of stuff. and she shared a lot more. She opened up about her anxiety growing up and stuff. So we like really connected a lot more while I was overseas. But yeah, like I think I guess like I recognized being stuck in the feelings when I was in Montreal, and I was like, okay, this is 6 months. I'm still like in this same kind of like loop. Nothing is changing. Like I don't see where or how I can process this any differently. At the time, I was just like, I don't see an option. I don't have clarity around anything. And I figured also because I was still young and at the start of my career relatively, like I was 5 years working in the sound studio, but which was my career job or the start of my career in sound, but I felt that because I wasn't like so senior yet, I could afford to just leave for I don't know, a year, 2 years. Like the working holiday visa with Ireland is a 2-year one, so I was like, I have time. I don't know if I'll stay on that long, but I have time. And when I got to Dublin, I remember getting off the plane and just immediately feeling so anxious and regretting almost having I was like, "Why did I do this to myself? I'm all alone. It's
What
gonna"
year was it?
2015, where I
Like,
landed in 2016, sorry. So, yeah, I was like, "Ugh," and I immediately felt like I needed to, again, negotiate with myself. I was like, "No, you did this for a reason. You felt it in your body. You needed this. So, give yourself at least 6 months, 6 months to a year. If in 6 months you still feel this way, because it's gonna take time to even just get settled in a city, so you gotta give yourself some time. But if in 6 months you still feel this way, then you can book a plane ticket, like return, because I only had a one-way ticket initially. You can book a return ticket to Montreal, and you'll have at least tried it. But you
yeah,
gotta give yourself the opportunity to actually try.
it's
And yeah, I
no, go
ended up
ahead.
2 years.
You have the full 2 years. That's awesome. So I was just telling my mom, or reminiscing about my mom about this story, and I have to share this because I think you'll relate with the anxiety. So mine was this is dating myself, but I think I already said my age on this, so whatever. 42. I went to the UK in 2005. So cell phones weren't really a thing in Canada yet. They were a thing in the UK, but like a smartphone was not a thing. So like Google Maps, like nothing, not a thing like that. But I got to London and I had never flown by myself before. I was an adventurer. I was like, I always wanted to live overseas, but like shy, anxious, awkward girl. Anyway, I land there and my bags don't show up. And I'm like, what? And I remember going to like the baggage claim guy and he's like, what do your bags look like? And I'm like, they look exactly like those two Samsonite bags, but red. And he's okay. And he's, what's your name? And he goes and looks at the bags. And because my parents had red ones and I had blue ones. And I was just like so anxious that I didn't even look at these two bags that looked exactly like mine, but a different color. But I was like thinking they were a different color. And he's like, these are yours, ma'am. And I was like, oh my God. Like my first moment. And then I took the tube and I didn't like, I wasn't like a backpacker and I was going there to live and I way overpacked, but these two massive bags, like going up the stairs of the London Underground and like having to carry one up and then go back down and get the other. And I'm like, just so naive. And I only had 2 nights booked in a hostel too. And I think like I'm going through a transition in life where I'm like, what do I want? What is success? Do I want this house? Like, I don't like this place that I live in right now. Like, I built this with a different future in mind with someone else. What do I want? And the fear of doing things alone. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I just heard an Adam Grant quote where he's mindfulness and being present isn't as helpful or something. He says it's more helpful to look back on the past and see the things you've overcome and look at where you're at and zoom out to your future self rather than being the present moment and realizing what you've overcome in the past, you can overcome in the present again. And so that brings me to, because we were talking about anxiety, burnout, and avoidance. I think like I've tried to run away from myself and my situations and what I've been going through so many times by like physically moving. And it's helped for a time, but I always catch up with myself. But I do think there is power in changing your environment. What do you think is a healthy avoidance and what is an unhealthy avoidance of yourself?
That is a huge
I was
question.
like, we'll close with this one, but I don't think we're going to close right away.
Actually, it ties back to what I forgot earlier and came back to me. Like you were like, when do you need to push through? And I was like, I think And I think it ties back to avoidance because, like, there are certain things that, like, we might be and I'm gonna speak for myself, actually. So, for me, when there's when I'm, like, overstimulated, I'm, like, tapped out, depleted, I will typically have a lot of avoidance around any kind of demands or anything that, like, I perceive as a demand. It could be, like, everyday life of just needing to get up in the morning or needing to, like, clean my apartment because it's extremely messy, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't feel good in this environment," but even just like, knowing that I have to do this, like, nah, I don't wanna do that. I'm just gonna avoid that. I think anything that for me is going to have an a further negative impact on my mental health or my environment or how, like, my financial stability or whatnot, I think that falls in the realm of, like, unhealthy avoidance. I think that sometimes we're not or I don't know, in times where, like, I'm maybe not ready to face something because I don't have the tools to actually, like, go through it and navigate that or the resources around me or even just the community to, like, support, if it doesn't have a big if it's not gonna have a big negative impact or an immediate negative impact on my well-being, I'm okay with avoiding it a little bit longer, whatever that
Mm.
is, just because I'm like, "Okay, one thing at a time," and I'm gonna whenever I need to actually move through that, I'll know because I'll have the resources, I'll have, like, whatever I need to be able to go through it. But if I'm thinking, like, even just, 2023, that autistic burnout, I'm constantly mentally exhausted, my thinking has slowed down, I'm finding it harder to solve problems, I'm finding it hard to access any of, like, my actual work skills that I've been building up for so many years, and I was dealing with a lot of, like, big things, moving in, just freshly moved in with a partner, doing renovations in my condo, first time, like, doing that sort of thing. Reno's going over budget, there's delays, I need to rent out the space because I'm paying 2 places at once for an extended period of time, and I'm like, "I don't have the budget for that," and so I'm just, like, constantly feeling but on top of that, I'm just also just completely depleted in all the other areas of my life, so I'm, like, avoiding having or yeah, I'm finding myself avoiding, like, small day-to-day things, big decision making. Because, like, for example, me and my partner were at some point discussing, "All right, we're our plan was always to move back," like, her plan anyways, because she's from BC, she always wanted to move back to BC, so we were trying to have conversations or she was trying to have conversations with me about that, and I was like, "Nope, no, I can't even get to that. I'm so stressed and in fight or flight and slash freeze at times around everything else that's happening in my life right now that I can't even have that conversation, so I would just avoid it. And, like, that to me, like, it was in some ways, like, unhealthy avoidance because it came to affect, like, our dynamic, I think.
Mhm.
And then if I think about just the repercussions of all the, like, renos and having tenants for a year, but then they don't wanna renew the lease, and me and my partner have separated living homes, so I've rented out somewhere else to live on my own, and then I'm suddenly again with 2 different places, paying both of them at once on a single kind of
Responsibilities suck.
yeah, but that at some point, I was just like, "I know my financial situation is horrific right now because of these, like, months of paying 2 places at once," but I was feeling so depleted, and I was like, I can't even face that, I can't even think about it." But
Mm.
that's to me was unhealthy because it was actually just constantly on my mind. I wasn't solving the problem, I wasn't even like trying to because I was like, it's too overwhelming. I'm just gonna avoid it. But it's there and I'm gonna think about it every single day. And
Yeah,
it's
like I remember someone saying, or like the amount of stress it takes to not do something but constantly think about it, or like the amount of energy. It takes just as much energy to avoid doing something as it is to do something. So you might as well do it quicker. But I've known that for years and I still avoid.
I mean, it's hard because like
My vacuum is right there for 4 days. And I could vacuum this room in 10 minutes, probably less.
sometimes I have to trick myself into thinking that whatever I because sometimes I'll avoid something that I actually really want to do.
Or you brings enjoyment. Why do you think we avoid the things that like bring us joy? Do you feel like an element of being undeserving?
I think so.
If I'm happy and fulfilled, then who am I? And what
Mm,
will
yeah.
my identity be?
Am I allowed to rest or do, I don't know, make art, to spend time, set time aside for just myself? Like that's something that I've like really struggled with is am I allowed to not immediately reply to every single text that comes in, every single message that like reaches my phone notification and whatnot? Am I allowed to have a day where I prioritize me? Like I looked at my calendar, I decided last weekend I was supposed to coach a football game on Sunday, and I had just had this awareness right on Thursday. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm overworked. I'm in burnout right now. I need to like chill. I need to reduce the demands. I need to reduce the triggers. I need to reduce the stress. And I started looking at, okay, where are things on my calendar that I can just cancel, move out, push out, make my calendar more like sustainable and have one day where I don't have any like no one has any expectations of me. I don't have any expectations of me. I just do whatever needs to happen, whatever I need to move through that day. And the Sunday was the day with the least amount of things. It was just that one game, and I struggled so much to just reach out to the head of the program and be like, "I know you're gonna be there. I need to take the day. I'm not gonna go." I usually am super committed. When I say something like when I say I'm gonna be there, I'm there. But I was like, I need to cancel. And I know it's super last minute, but this is needed for my mental health. And I'm gonna be I'm gonna show up better in the long run if I take this time off rather than try and push through. But I think just even allowing myself to acknowledge that was challenging, to allow myself to be like, not ask for permission, just say,
Take
this
it.
is what I need, and I'm not gonna show up. I'm sorry.
That feels selfish. So what would you say in closing to someone who is like so burnt out, avoiding, like they don't even feel like they can do the healthy things because they're so anxious and burnt out? What would you say to them right now?
I've found, and I've been working with a couple friends now on this, but to find something that actually does bring you joy, that does feel like it fills up your cup, it's nourishing, and maybe to have an accountability buddy that you can do that thing with. Parallel play if you need to. You're not talking, you're both doing your own things, but like you're together and you're like keeping each other accountable to at least do that one thing that will fill up your cup a little bit.
I love that. I recently had a friend say, "What's something that you do for you?" And I was like, and I didn't have an answer.
What is one thing you do for you?
You know what? I used to do pole dancing and I really liked it and I had so much fun with it. I just had a hard time because I was like the oldest person in it. And I would love to do dancing with a community of people that like I really connect with. And that was like the part that I didn't find that I had as much was like the community bit. But I did really enjoy it. Like, I think because I feel like I was sexually repressed growing up and not comfortable in my own body, where like learning to feel comfortable in my body and like dance and be like sexy was like, I don't think I'm allowed to do this, but it was like really fun and like freeing for me. So I would say like dance, like I like just dancing in my house like the Backstreet Boys, but like pole dancing was like really fun. And like
Mm.
you have to be strong. My body started hurting, so I had to quit, but I feel like I'm getting really strong again. But I do think like just dance in some sort of form is really fun for me.
I love that.
What about you?
My biggest me time, honestly, is like when I'm on a football field, when I'm playing
Hmm.
football. Like it's the most it's the I guess there's two things because that's the most accessible one to have access to all the time. But flag is just I've been playing ever since I was 15, so it's been 20 years now, going on 20 years, and I just feel it's a physical exertion of energy. I feel my body working. I'm like more attuned to what it needs, how it feels, like all that, the same kind of like the way the gym does that. But I'm also spending time with because I'm no longer in that competitive kind of like realm of things. I spend time with friends and people that I like enjoy spending time with outside of football, but now we're just doing this we're sharing this like thing that we love doing together and we're spending time together doing it, and it's just I feel free. I feel like for that hour on the football field there's no real demand. I'm just like I know the game, I show up to play it, and I ideally have fun doing it, and everything. And also football is so structured. There's 4 quarters, you know what to expect. It's 4
Yeah.
tries, do this, but everything's super structured, so it's, like, great for my brain because 'cause I'm like, I know exactly what to expect.
Predictability. I always think I was just thinking what fills up your cup and like conversations like this. Like I love having, I don't even want to say deep conversations, but like conversations that are open with open-minded people that we can like discuss and be curious and not opinionated in the way of I'm right, you're wrong, and like this way and this way. I love having people with perspective and like being like, oh, that's an interesting way of hearing things. And like I was thinking about like the things that fill up your cup are generally the things that you like lose track of time and you forget to look at your phone. And for me, like dancing or like doing like shitty 5-year-old crafts, I love. Like it's not about what it looks like in the end, but it's like the like using I has to be like tactical for me. And
Yeah.
that's where it's like moving my body or like tactically like playing with Play-Doh. I'm like, I should make some Play-Doh this weekend. That would be so fun. And just like doing the things that like you did as a kid that like make you lose track of your phone. And I really think that is like a healing and restorative form of rest.
Yes. And you know what a random one is for me as well? Like, a thing that I do for me, and p I it's just come to me now, but I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that is actually something I very much do for me more than just also a basic hygiene need." Showering.
Mm.
Showering is, like, such a strong like moment just for myself. And I've found that meditating, like putting on a meditation while I'm in the shower is so nice and grounding and it's
Even
really
over bathing,
What's that?
like shower over bait, like a bath.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baths I enjoy, but I get overheated quickly no matter what the temperature is. Like I can't.
You
It's
get
too
cold, too hot.
Yeah. So a shower, but I think there's like something about also the feeling of the drops falling
Mhm.
on my body and just like noticing where they're or how they're falling on me and how it feels. And I haven't really looked into it a whole lot, but I visited a salon last fall, and the salon owner mentioned how like water has like a lot of healing qualities, and she mentioned like one specific kind of theory and research around it. If I can, I know I've saved the tab, I'll send it to you if you want to add it or whatnot, but yeah, there's a lot of that, and I think I just know it intuitively as a little cancer baby.
Cancer, I'm like Cancer moon. No wonder we get along so well. So with that, Alex, where can people find you? How can they connect with you more? Because I know people like the listeners are going to be like, I need to talk with Alex.
You're so kind. So I have 2 Instagram accounts. I have my work account, so I work with Forrest. I host the Forrest FM podcast. That's how we had our first like official conversation. And that account is at a.bel spring. I share more around, yeah, work related stuff, a little bit of like life insights, but if you want the full, like only life insights stuff, where I talk more about transness, I talk more about just the things I'm thinking about outside of the work realm, that's Wait, I'm gonna write it out because it's Alpoiesis.
Oh, I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I don't like I hadn't advertised it. It was the account that I created when I started exploring gender and
Hmm.
started exploring or testing how I felt about different names. Choosing a new name is a hell of a lot
Yeah,
than you think it is. And so I wanted that to be a slow process without having the public eye of people, so many
sure.
people knew me or knew of me through the podcast to I just wanted that privacy, but still being public with it, I guess, in some ways, and created a separate account that I never really advertised all that much, but I'm open to it now. Like you can connect there with me if you want. Those are the main two spaces, honestly. Otherwise, I don't use Facebook anymore, and I'm very inconsistent on LinkedIn. So
I
Instagram.
have a LinkedIn and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And I feel like I'm like this old person now. I'm like, I don't want to learn something new. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to become irrelevant very soon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I love that. I've just loved our friendship from the very beginning. And I love like low maintenance friendships, which I feel like we like connect and we'll connect deeply and then we won't talk for a while. And it's just, it ebbs and flows in such a natural state with no,
Care's,
what's that?
care's always there.
Yeah, yeah. And there's no like expectation or obligation or pressure, which I feel like helps us both feel safe in this friendship. So thank you so much for coming and sharing so openly and vulnerably. And I'll have to have you back again because next time you won't be so loopy on a new medication. Oh my God. I feel like I'm gonna re-listen to this, editing it and being like, I don't remember saying that at all. I'm having a very body and brain disconnection right now.
Oh my god, that's
What
so
better place to have it than on the Anxious Creative podcast?
there you go. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And you said, you know what? You said, let's not prep anything. I need to take messy and perfect action. I loved that. And I'm just so happy that we were able to share so openly with each other and with whoever is listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for creating that space, that safe space. I really appreciate our friendship and the care that you put into creating that.
That one got deep, but that's the whole point, right? Now, before you go, you have to tune in next week because I did something that I never thought I could actually do presently. I turned my phone off for 7 days. 7, a full week. And what I uncovered, let's just say it shocked me. Yes, I'm going to talk about the phone addiction. Yes, I'm going to talk about being more present. But there's also something I discovered that I never expected. And I promise you won't see this coming either. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if today's episode hit home, go get instant access to my free masterclass on how to go from overwhelmed to profitable in your business at dawnbradley.com/free class. Because business doesn't have to feel this hard. Let's simplify it together. Until then, stay weird, stay messy, and as always, friend, stay unapologetically yourself. We'll see you next week.